Hey there, it's Jenny from Southern Savers. It's our Monday night Q&A, which is your chance to ask any questions that you have, saving money, couponing, all of that. And tonight, budgeting. I decided really that we would go budgeting for two reasons. Y'all are helping me prep as I'm speaking at a women's conference in Atlanta this coming weekend and doing 2 sessions on budgeting. So you helped me make sure I had my notes all ready and set for that. But it's also a great topic for us to cover on a semi-regular basis because most of us try to tackle life without one. But in all honesty, you're not going to sit down to make a cake or to cook something in the kitchen without a recipe. And you shouldn't be sitting down to try to even begin to manage your finances without a budget either. This is like the meat and potatoes of getting your finances in order. So it's important. So hello to everyone that is jumping in, that is regular, and hello to folks that are new. If this is your first time jumping in on a Q&A, you leave your questions in the comments and I will answer them. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. I sometimes take a little bit to get back to the comments, so don't give up on me. I will always get back to them. My husband also tries to help stay in them so that he can help me catch any that I miss as well. But you just leave them in the comments and I will see them. So on YouTube side, I'm trying to pull them up now so that I don't miss anything. As we do go through, if we have any technical issues, we're live streaming in 2 places. So I know last week we had some YouTube issues. You can always jump over to Facebook. And Facebook folks, we've not had any Facebook issues in a long time, but if we did there too, you could jump over to YouTube if you wanted to. But it makes it very easy to catch in 2 different places. So before we go into budgeting, Sue's already got a question that's off topic, which is completely fine. CVS, what would I do with 10 CVS bucks that'll expire this week? I've been waiting on an awesome deal, but not finding any. So Sue, what I would probably go for, there's a really good deal on Persil laundry detergent and Dial body wash, and I would probably pair that together. It's a buy 20 and get 7, but we have buy one, get one Dial body wash coupons, $3 off Persil coupons, and $2 offs that came in the newspaper, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. And I would go crazy on the coupons on that $20 deal. And I did a couple different deal ideas for that is in the CVS list. So you should see it as an idea, but that would be the particular deal that I would go in for this week if I was deciding. Now this is an off week for me. My extra care bucks don't expire until next week. So I'm probably not gonna go in. And I've mentioned that to you guys in the past. Once you've been at it for a while, you don't really need to go to CVS every single week. You have plenty, so you kind of go to keep your extra care bucks going and keep everything moving, but don't need to be there every single week. I've reached the point, really, guys. I think it would make a fun little Instagram loop video. I can put something in the cabinet for body wash and hair care, and when I push it into the cabinet, something else falls out of the cabinet over here. So we're good. Nothing else is going to fit in that cabinet. So I'm not grabbing the Dial deal at CVS, but that's the one that I would get if I were you. Let's see. So budgeting question, Anna, and I'll use you to kind of launch us into the discussion tonight. My husband and I are still learning budgeting. Every time I budget $400 a month for my family of 4, I always end up spending something more like $500 or $600. Do you have any tips on making a really structured budget? So Anna, let's just jump right into budgeting 101 on that. What I would say to start with is that, I guess, very beginning framework for anyone as we sit down to create a budget, and this is the most important part to me on making a budget that works for people and is going to work for the whole family, is that you need to remember from the beginning that this is not your budget, it is your family's budget. If you're married, it is our budget. So this can't be owned by one person who is then kind of relegating, you're done, you can't spend any more money. That doesn't work. So we need to all be on the same page. It may be that one of you is sitting down and making it, but you're still going over with somebody else. We're still sitting down together at some point and kind of having that approved in a sense, if that makes sense. That you're both on the same page. It's very important or it isn't going to work. with budgeting to get started, what I would recommend is you've got to kind of look at two factors. We have to look at what's coming in and what's going out. I mean, if we really broke it down into bare bones, that's a budget. How much is coming in each month and how much is going out each month? And I can say, Anna, like you were saying, if I try to budget $400 a month, I can make up a number there and just say, we're going to hit this number. But that's not really going to work if it's not based on how things have gone over the past few months. So for me, the best thing that you can do is to sit down with your checkbook, with your bank statement, and let's see, where has money been going? So it's what's coming in is easy. You know how much you make every month. And that could change for some of you. Some of you may be commission-based, and that number is changing. So in the winter months, you're making a ton. In the summer months, you're barely making anything. But you can kind of average that out over 12 months if you're not a straight flat amount that you're earning every single month. But the what's coming in is kind of the easy part of the budget. It's the what's going out that's the really hard part. So as we start to figure that out, you need to look at what you've been doing historically. I can come up with that random number that I want our grocery budget to stay under. But if I have never hit $400, then it's not going to work. I'm making up this kind of fictional number that would be great, but you haven't hit it. Don't put yourself in that boat. So look at what you've been doing over the last few months, looking at your bank statements, looking at your checkbook, however you want to do that, and kind of get all of that mapped out. Now there's a few things that you can use, and I'll put the link in the comments too so that you can find it. But it's a super easy one. It's a free download from Dave Ramsey's site on making a budget. And it maps out exactly how much you've spent this month. But what I would recommend, and I know it seems old school to print out a piece of paper and write numbers on it, but guys, it's kind of fun to go old school and write on a piece of paper. So before you go app, get out the pen and the paper. How many of us love to make lists? It's kind of the same thing. So sit there, print this out, but do this over the course of 2 or 3 months. So where it's telling you, my expenses this month, and I know Facebook folks, it's always backwards, but my expenses this month, I would encourage you to print out 2 or 3 of these. So my expenses this month, my expenses last month, my expenses the month before that. Because if I base our grocery budget, and just to help you look forward, if I am going to sit down and I'm going to make my budget for October, and then I'm going to base my numbers from for November completely off of October's expenses, I'm going to fail. November's food budget is always going to be higher than October's because your family's coming into town and you have pies you want to bake for Thanksgiving, and we have extra food that we normally do not purchase in November. So I can't do that off of just 1 month. So go back. I would recommend at least 3 months. So this first time you sit down, it feels really overwhelming, but what you're really doing is trying to get a feel on what you've been spending over the last few months. Because if you've been living with no budget, I can't just have one today. I have to know where things are going. Now, if this idea scares you, like getting out a piece of paper and a pen, again, this is a free printable, and I will stick it in the YouTube side. Sorry, guys. A free printable that you can just print out 2 or 3 copies and go to it on that. If you don't want to do this, there are a couple of apps that will do this for you, and some of them cost money. So I'm not a huge fan of having to pay, but sometimes it's worthwhile. Honestly, going pen and paper and doing this yourself, though, in the very beginning, is a really great way to shock yourself into what in the world you've been spending money on in the first place. The first time that you realize that meals out category, you realize, whoa, we spent over $200 last month eating out. That's a good shock that we all need to kind of hold us back and not doing that again. So sometimes that pen and paper really helps you to catch that. But there are apps that can do it too. So before we go any further in app land, the free app that's been around for the longest that a lot of people recommend, we've used it as well, is Mint.com. Mint is owned by Intuit, who owns Quicken and QuickBooks. So you can link your bank accounts with it, and it can tell you where things are going without you having to do as much work. It's not always going to know what something is. So you will end up spending a little bit of time in Mint categorizing and assigning it to the right section, but it is a help in getting started if you have never organized your expenses before into eating out and gas and groceries. It's going to help you get those into pockets. Mint is on your computer or on your phone, and they sync together, so you can go either way. I would recommend the computer as you first get started. Another one that a lot of folks love is YNAB, which is You Need a Budget, but YNAB is the name of the app. YNAB does have a cost, but it's probably, I hear more people rave about that than any other budgeting app that's out there. And cost-wise, it's really inexpensive. I don't want to name prices because prices are always changing, or sometimes you can find a coupon code or a discount, but it's one of the least expensive options that still has a cost. It brings in all of your banking information for you, and it's going to spit out a makeshift budget based on the data from the past few months. Now, why we need to do this, just to kind of go back and explain. I told you I wanted you to print out 3 copies of this. I want you to fill it out. You know, we're in almost the end of October, which is kind of shocking. Next week brings November. So let's do October, let's do September, let's do August, so that we have a feel for that. Because if I'm going to sit there and try to say, this is my grocery budget, but I'm basing it on 1 month, I'm really setting myself up for a failure, and I don't want to do that. I want to look at what I've been doing, and then I want to try to either go with that, or maybe I am going to say, you know what, next month, how about if I just try to shave 30 bucks off of what I did last month, which isn't really a lot. If you haven't been trying to save in the grocery store, you could probably knock off 30 bucks if you're just getting started. But let's not go huge on anything that we're assigning to anybody. You know, if you look at that eating out and you decide it's all your husband and it's his fault and he's eating out for lunch and he's not going to do any more of that, he will fail miserably. You just took him from being able to eat out all the time to not being able to eat out at all, and he's probably going to hate you for it. So it has to work for everybody. We can't go to this cold turkey sense of budgeting. It doesn't work if you're trying to quit smoking, and it doesn't work if you're trying to stop spending money either. So it needs to be a slow process. But first is figuring out those expenses and where things really are going. The other side of that, before we move on, and Aaron's asking, you know, let's talk about bills and budgeting and renegotiating, so we'll get there in just a second. The other side, I told you guys, there are 2 pieces really, how much is coming in and how much is going out. So one thing on the income side, before we move into individual expenses, is that I really encourage you to be honest there, and that a budget should never be based on being hopeful. So we're not going to sit down and make January's budget with the assumption that you're going to get a raise. We don't ever want to make a budget with any assumptions, because we're setting ourselves up for a pretty bad failure in the end if that doesn't happen. Or you're going hopeful on December is going to be a killer month and we're going to make a ton of money. That may not pan out, and you may be in a really rough spot. So we base it off of historical numbers and what has happened. And if you end up having a great December and a great January, then that's wonderful. And we can factor that in next year, but we are not going to factor that in this year. Always being honest and never being hopeful. I know that sounds horrible, but with the income side of things, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure, thinking that you're going to have $1,000 more than you do, and it doesn't exist. It's not going to be there. Best option too on the income side, guys, as you're mapping things out, is if you can, to live on one income. If you and your spouse are both working, that we're aiming to save one whole income, we're almost acting like that second income does not exist, putting it into savings, that would be best case scenario. And most of the folks that are in that category tend to not have a budget, but you still need one because it's helping you to manage where you're still spending your money. The software, Kathy, that we were mentioning earlier, I mentioned mint.com, which is free. YNAB, or You Need a Budget, is another one. Quicken, there's a few really that you can look at. Quicken is owned by the same company that owns Mint. It is not free, but it does a really good job of categorizing everything, and a little bit better of a job than Mint. And two other apps. Simple Dollar is Dave Ramsey's. It is not necessarily cheap once you get into it off of the free version. And Good Budget is another one that has a lot of really great reviews. We use Quicken and QuickBooks. Being a small business owner, QuickBooks is almost kind of like a government required system, or else you just screw up. So that is where we have landed, but we've tried a number of them as we've gone through things. Okay, yes, and the Dave Ramsey one is EveryDollar is the free version. He does have a free version, and Tanya's mentioning, but there is some paid upgrades to EveryDollar as well. So you can stick with the free side for sure, but as you want more features, it's not free anymore on the EveryDollar. Okay, let me jump into other questions really quick. The other one, Heidi, is Good Budget, and that's actually an app. So you can search the App Store, the Play Store, the iTunes Store for Good Budget, and you'll find that one. I don't think that its website is goodbudget.com though. Just look for the app. So Jessica's got a good question. I'm a single mom and trying to reduce my budgeting, or reduce your expenses, I would assume there, with a baby. So all of this is going to apply, Jessica, on you too. The plus side on that is that it's for you to figure out. You don't have to have anyone else to feel like you're being a miser over what they spend or not spend. But the downside is that obviously those incomes and expenses are falling on you. So it's a much harder spot to be in, with a little bit less stress on arguments and differences of opinion when it comes to creating a budget. For you with a baby, I would recommend that you think about going big as you're first figuring out how to save on diapers and expenses that they need. If you're just getting, I don't know how young your baby is, Jessica, but go big in that category, and then let's start to see kind of the joy as you get diapers under control and you get other items under control using the deals and coupons. It's a huge way to save when it comes to baby items. But focusing on living within what you're making and still saving is still going to apply all of that to you. Okay, so, and then one other question on the YouTube side. Let's see. Okay, we're all set. Oh, someone asked if I had any of my own products. I do not have any of my own products. I would just recommend others. To go into expenses as you're tracking things, I encourage you to track everything. There is no miscellaneous. There is no cash. There is no fun money category. Those should not exist to you as you're mapping things out. And I like that printout that I put in the comments already. And I'll pin it at the end of the video for anyone that's trying to watch the video after the fact and you're just looking through all the comments. But you're going to notice that even here, there's no miscellaneous. There's no cash. There's no just fun little bucket of money. Everything is mapped out. So if you're getting coffee at Starbucks, if you're stopping at Sonic and getting a milkshake, whatever it is, it's getting put somewhere. It's not ending up in a random spot. If you're getting cash out of the ATM or you're doing cash back at the grocery store, you need to decide there with your spouse where that money is going to go. And so Heidi's saying, does that mean you get no play money? You need to decide with your spouse what category that's going to live in. So if I go to Publix and I get $40 in cash back after the groceries, am I going to add that to my grocery budget, which kind of hurts? Or are we going to go ahead and say that that money is going to be spent on eating out? But it is getting spent somewhere. So you need to decide when I get that money out of the ATM or cash back from somewhere, what category is it going to live in the budget? Because it's not just sitting in your purse. You did something with it, and odds are you usually do about the same things with it. So that's the category it needs to be put in. So hopefully that helps, Heidi. No fun money category, unless, like Erin said, it's Monopoly and colored, and then we could end up going to jail if you tried to pay with things like that too. So let's just not go there. So everything's going to get tracked. And then if you are awesome, let's say you plug things into Mint or you use Quicken and you let it just go way back, which it'll do. It can go crazy back. crazy far back. What I would recommend is that if we're going to try to come up with what our first month's budget is going to be, so like Anna was saying, I can't get to the 400 mark of groceries that I set for myself. We really need to look at the highest month and work off of that, or we need to take an average of the last 3 or 4 months. So if you're using an online system, a lot of them will do that for you. But if you're using paper, then I'm going to line these up. You know, look at page 1 and line them up with a couple other pages of page 1. You know, which month had the highest number? That's the month that I'm going to go with on my budget. And keep in mind, guys, a lot of these things don't change. My mortgage is always the same. It's not a number that's changing. So don't panic when I say that I want you to go back 2 or 3 months on the first time that you do this. Some of these numbers aren't any different for you. That's an easy one to budget, where some things are much higher. You know, gas for the car. If we had a couple of workshops, like last month I was in Alabama, or Mary had a doctor's appointment in Atlanta, and we've got some big trips that we need to take. Gas for the car could be really high one month and then much lower the next. So I've got to look over the last few months to kind of figure out what the plan is going to be with those, because it's not the same. So that's why we're looking over a few months, and just line those columns up kind of like this, even though they're not the same sheet, but just line them up so you can see. Pretend that they're the same there for a second. So you can see the different months. Pick which one's the highest, and that's going to be your first out of the gate. This is this month's budget, so that we're setting ourselves up to succeed rather than setting ourselves up for failure on that very first month. Okay, is it good to always do that highest number for each category? Yes, Laura, on the very first time that you make a budget, I would recommend highest number. Now next month, we've done highest number on those expenses and we didn't hit it next month. Great, you didn't use all of that money. Let's try to come down just a little bit if we can, and bring those into a number that's working and is doable for everyone in the family. There's going to be moments too on highest number that isn't going to work too. Let's say that we do this and you map it all up, and when you hit this bottom line on total expenses, it doesn't equal what you make. You know, we have a problem there. Then highest month is going to be where we're going to have to sit down and say, okay, if worst case scenario, everything was at its highest this month and we're out $300 or $400, we have to figure out where we're coming down this month. So that's kind of where I want you to get that idea. Our goal here is to figure out kind of worst case scenario, highest month, and then let's see how we can tailor that, how we feel like we could make that go lower, and what we could change. So Anna's saying, just to clarify, let's say that we've budgeted out a check, and after everything we've budgeted, and with what we need to pay, we have $100 left. You're saying that it's bad to say that it's $100 for whatever. I am, Anna. And this is Dave Ramsey probably is the one that coined it. Who knows, maybe someone before him. But every dollar needs a job is his saying. And with that every dollar needs a job, what he means by that is that $100 that's left over, that needs to be saved. That is savings. Boom, we found $100 and we're putting it to work in a savings account. Because if we leave it there, if you have $100 left over, it will be spent. It will never be $100 going into a nest egg or an emergency fund. It will always be spent. And that's just how we work. If I give my kids $10 and I send them into Michael's, they are going to spend $9.99. They're not even going to factor in tax, so they're really in the negative here by the time they're done. But that's how our brains work from the very beginning when we're given money. I want to use all of this. So it has to have a job and needs to immediately put into savings, into retirement, into college funds, into rainy day funds, you know, whatever it is that you're working towards. But it needs to be doing that versus sitting there by itself. So Heidi's question, how much each month should you allow for car repairs based off of one car and no car payment, so only insurance is paid monthly? I would, Heidi, it's kind of a hard question because some of it's going to be, how old is your car? What kind of car? You know, if you've got a Volvo, it's going to cost a little bit more to fix than other cars, and you've probably learned that. For some folks with car repairs, it might be you're going for kind of a year budget on that, and maybe you're really going to break that up over months so that you're more saving the money for a worst case moment than planning on it. I would go ahead and factor in oil changes and regular maintenance, so you probably have an idea of what that would cost, or hopefully, you know, a husband who knows how to do it. If we want to get super frugal, it's still going to have a cost in buying the oil. But I would really look at car repairs as being like your own savings account. So let's say that we're going to budget, you know, if I've got an older car, maybe I go big and I say I'm going to budget $700 a year for something big that needs to be done. So I'm going to try to put aside, what is that, $55 to $60 a month that's going to go into our savings account. That's really the car repair budget. I'm not going to have that money every month, but when that $700 bill comes, if it comes, I've spent all year prepping for it, and I'm never in a, oh, I need to fix the car and I don't have the money to do that. So that's probably where I would point you to. So you have a newer car, Heidi. I don't even know that I would probably go with, or I say newer. 2011 sounds like a very new car to me. I don't know that I would go with a super high budget, but I would probably give yourself at least $500 in an account. And if I don't use it this month, just so you know, yeah, my husband just kind of plugged in $1,200 to $2,000, but keep in mind too, guys, so if I put that money aside, if I say this is the car repair budget, or things that we don't use all the time, looking at the various things that are here for car maintenance, for, you know, kind of that rainy day fund in a sense. If I don't use it this year, we don't have a massive car repair, then that's saved and ready for next year. So it almost becomes an item that's off of my budget next year. I've already saved the $1,200 or the $2,000, or maybe you say, you know what, we're going to keep saving that, and that's going to be our new car budget on down the road. So if I'm not using the money for the car repairs, then it's just getting bigger and better. So yes, exactly what Jessica's saying. So Jessica's like, if I don't spend it all, I'm just compounding that. So I'm just building on top of that, and eventually, instead of a $2,000 car repair, I'll just buy a new car. You know, maybe that becomes the bigger goal. So, and there we go. I always find the highest part divvied up over 12 months or 6 months. Yes, so lots of folks chiming in on going off of the highest part and then averaging out on your expenses. And with expenses too, guys, don't forget about yearly expenses. The Dave Ramsey sheet that you print out covers a lot of them, and most of them are up in this health category, guys. Your life insurance, your house insurance, car insurance, you may not pay those every single month. You may pay those every 6 months or once a year. And if that's the case, you can't forget about them on your monthly budget. So the money's still getting pulled out. It's getting put into savings. I would actually encourage you, just a little tip, you can get online money market accounts or online savings accounts. We have one with Capital One online, and they tend to run really good deals around Black Friday, just as a plug on that if you want to wait. Good deals where when you set up the account, they give you a bonus when you put money in it. So you might get $100 to set up an account. Look for those. Set up online accounts, and with those online accounts, you can actually have sub-accounts. So I can automatically deduct $50 a month into this account and put another $100 into this account, and that's the car fund. And it's, in a sense, it's like you're setting up envelopes, but they're savings accounts set aside for a rainy day fund, an emergency fund. You get the idea, but the point is that you're getting them out of your checking account. They can't stay in the checking account, because if you open up the checking account and you see, whoa, I got $1,200, you're going to spend it. And if that's not a struggle, great. But for most folks, it is a struggle. So moving that into a separate savings account, and not even your normal savings account, but into a sub account, into an online money market. Most of these accounts have no fees related to them. So it's not going to cost you anything to move these into there. You can set up automatic deductions so you're set and it's going there every month without you having to remember. It's going to make it much easier to get that money saved and put aside without any huge issues. So let's see. And Tanya's mentioning too, you can have a fun money or an entertainment category if you decide that's where you want it to go. Yes, this is your budget. So have a date night category or a entertainment category. If that's what you want, it is. It's your budget. Make it work for you. You can't have a miscellaneous. That's what I would say. I can't have a category that has no tag whatsoever because it has to have a place that it's living. Tammy's asking, how do we budget for Christmas? So Tammy, I would recommend for Christmas that it becomes something that you're even saving up for throughout the year. So for us, I'm going to have a section that is for gifts. And that's going to be money that we're putting aside every single month. Maybe there are no birthdays that month, then the extra is going towards Christmas. Sometimes Christmas too can be a fun way to use that as extra money anyway. Can be your Saving Star money, your Ibotta money that you're getting from mobile apps. Maybe you do that throughout the year and then cash it in the fall just for Christmas. Kind of an extra way to save up a little bit more that you didn't intend on when you first started. But that can be a way too. And the big thing Christmas-wise, Tammy, is that you need to just set a budget, and when it's met, we're done. There's no more Christmas shopping. There are no more presents that are going to hit the tree once that total amount is set. And that is very important to me. I've seen so many parents that are off spending, $75 to get this toy that should be $15, but everybody decided that it was a huge toy to have. That doesn't make any sense. Just get it for your kids for their birthday next year. I don't have to spend 5 times more than the toy's value to have it on one special day. So we can use our money to its best use by setting that cap and not being willing to raise it at all. Laura is mentioning too that they have 2 budgets. One is for Christmas and one is, I guess, for food. One budget for Christmas and the other is for October, November, December food, for seasonal foods, pumpkin spice, peppermint things. Yeah, so you can kind of just create a whole nother separate, this is how it's going to work during the holidays versus this is how it's going to work any other time of the year. I don't have that pumpkin spice issue, but if there was a huge sale on apple cider, I'm there. I will buy all of the apple cider on clearance every year. Okay, to keep us going, some problem areas that you can hit. I get this question usually when we cover budgeting. Someone always asks, what do I do if my husband's not on the same page or I'm not on the same page? How do I get them to agree or to be okay with whatever the budget is? And this can be a tricky one, but what I would, obviously you have to start with compromise. And so what I would recommend is that you find a few categories that are issue categories for you and a few categories that are issue categories for them. So maybe I'm going to go incredibly stereotypical here. Your categories are craft supplies and grocery extras and clothing, and his are coffee and electronics, and you get the idea. Well, pair those up and say, you know what, I'm not going to come and attack your issues wholeheartedly. What I'm going to do instead is say, I'm willing to spend this much less in Michael's. Could you be willing to spend this much less in a coffee shop? So that you're giving up something and he's giving up something at the same time, and we're trying to compromise versus me coming and saying, you will never drink coffee outside of this house again. That's not going to go so well. So let's try to find something that is a happy medium. You are giving up something and he's giving up something on both lists of those expenses. Or option 2 is that you both kind of come up with target numbers for all of those categories and you see how those are going to meet up. So he's going to come up with some target numbers for your Michael strips and you're going to come up with target numbers for his coffee, and then let's find maybe a happy medium across the two lists of expenses that you've both come up with. A real life scenario, birthday money that you get. My birthday's tomorrow and I've received money. Does that go into the budget or am I allowed to spend it on myself? Heidi, that's a really, really good question. And I have to say, birthday money is something that as you get older, you don't get very often. So it is kind of fun to get. I lean in one of two. I kind of want to say both. A long time ago, when life was incredibly tight for us, trying to live on one income, and our twins were not even one, in diapers, we weren't couponing. My mother-in-law would give us cash for Christmas, and she would put on the card, please don't use this for bills. I mean, she wanted us to use it for things that we wanted, you know, buy a new grill, buy something, and that was usually our Christmas. So it was a chunk that she was handing us. And I can see her desire for us to use it in a way that was a happy way. Please don't, you know, pay the electricity bill with this. We, in turn, many Christmases did turn around and use it for bills. It was nice to think about what we would have grabbed it on, but we weren't in that boat. If you are in that boat where you don't need to spend it on bills, I think it's okay. Somebody has given you a present to use in a manner that makes you happy. They could have bought you a gift, but they've given you money so that you can buy your own gift. I think that's okay. It wasn't part of your budget. It wasn't part of anything that you had mapped out. Spend it if that's what you want to do, or save it. You know, long-term saving it, you're still using it in a way that you want to use it. If I stick it in my retirement fund, I will think about you in 20 years when I retire. That's okay too. It's really up to you on how you're going to spend it, but I think it's okay to not worry about it going in the budget at all. It wasn't part of the income that you ever considered. It's really your decision as to whether you save or whether you spend. But keep in mind that they don't mind you using it for something fun. That's why they've given it to you. Jessica says, how do I make a budget when my monthly income changes every month? Yes, and that's a tricky one, Jessica. So what you need to do here, even like with the printout, print out 2 or 3 of these, and on that income part, the very top, which is 2 little lines, not hard, but on that income top, you need to map out for the last 3 or 4 months what was your income, take an average of it, and if your income fluctuates a lot, you're never hopeful with an income. You can be hopeful on what you're going to try to cut on expenses, but you're never hopeful on an income. So if it fluctuates a ton, I'm going to go with the lowest income that I've had, so that if I have a great month, then I have a great budget. I can save a lot that month, but I don't want to set myself up for failure by using my income level of that great month. I can't do that, especially if I can already see over the past 3 or 4 months that that's not the average. I can't do that. So look at a few months and then go with the worst month income-wise. Yeah, and I think Beth Ann's right. I think with that birthday money, we'd all do something different with it. Beth Ann says, my husband would spend that birthday money and I would invest it. Most of us are that way. I would say most households have a spender and a miser who's all ready to tell the spender what to do with their money. So you've got to allow them to have a little bit of splurge money, especially if someone's giving you that birthday money. Just enjoy it. Okay, to move on, kind of hit the problem issues with goals and problem areas with coffee, whatnot. What do we do if it doesn't add up? So you get all your expenses mapped out and you get your income, and those numbers, you're making this much, but you're spending this month. You gotta be able to balance out. We can't spend more than we have unless you're the U.S. government. You can't do that. All the rest of us, our budgets must match up, and if they don't, we end up in a really, really tight spot. So how do we handle that? Obviously, the first thing that we can do is we could make more money. That is not the easiest. I can't just magically make more money. So I can't usually change the income side unless I'm going to go and get another job. I'm going to beg for a raise. There's just not much that's going to budge on the income side. So the other side is if I can't make this side move, I have to spend less. And that's where creating a budget is going to mean that we now live a little bit more frugally than we did in the past. So we're going to cut expenses where we can cut expenses, and we're really going to try to do our best to live inside the budget that we've mapped out for ourselves. And that's the part that nobody likes. Because just like a diet, nobody likes the idea that you can't eat the ice cream at the end of the day. Nobody likes that you can't buy the ice cream at the end of the day either. So it's just one where that side, getting expenses down, is the hard part. It is the diet. It is the forcing yourself to get up and exercise in the morning when you don't want to. So with cutting expenses, I would start with the biggest chunks of what you have. This part hurts for some people. So if you're looking at your budget and your biggest chunks are a car payment, do I have to have that car payment? Could I sell the current car that I have and get a used car that costs less? So to kind of pick on someone who is never on a Q&A with me, but has worked for me for a number of years, she was recently in a wreck and her car was totaled. Her car was paid for, but is now totaled. So option A, she can get a new car and now have car payments again. Or option B, she could take the money from the totaled car and buy a used car with it. No car payments. Now, she is not choosing option A or option B. She's choosing option A, and it depends on you. But if you don't have the money for a car payment, the first thing we could do is figure out how to get rid of it. Can I sell this super swanky car and buy a used car? It's a pride issue that you're probably going to have to deal with, but it's a big one to get that car payment off the books completely is pretty awesome. The other thing that's going to do for you guys, you may not even think about it fully. The taxes are lower on a used car. The insurance is lower on a used car. So switching gears, this boat over here with no car payment and a used car becomes pretty lucrative when you start to really think about how huge that is over the brand new car, the higher property taxes, the higher insurance payment. That's a much bigger bite that you're choosing to take versus the used car. So that is a flexible item in a budget that we don't usually think of as flexible. You think, I gotta have a car. Yes, but you don't have to have a brand new car. So just to, maybe hit somebody's sore spot on that one. That is flexible. There are some budgets that are also flexible. So someone was asking, renegotiating bills. Heidi's saying, with things adding up, how do we make the transition from Comcast to Roku Sling? Because even though you cancel the cable service, you still have to have a bill. You're right, Heidi. So even though I cancel the cable service, I still have to have the internet service on anything if I'm going to go streaming. But anything that's in this category, it is a good place to look at for changing those expenses. So I can change my cell phone plan. I can switch carriers now. Most of us are not tied into contracts now that they've gone off of contract systems. So let's look at like Sprint, who's been offering free, unlimited for a year. You don't even have to have a contract there. You can leave after a year. Or let's look at going with the Walmart plan, which is one of the cheapest in the country. So changing cell phone options. You can also call and try to renegotiate the rates that you have with your current provider if you don't want to switch. And you may find that they come down a chunk as well. Cable internet, to me, is a thing of the past. So Heidi, I'm with you. It is time to make the transition. We do not have to have cable TV to have internet. So if you ever call and they tell you, I'm sorry, you can't just have internet, you have to have the cable too, they're lying. You can have internet without having cable. You will always have a bill. That is the hard part. No one's going to give you internet for free, but you can find ways to save there too. So if you've got multiple services in your city, let's get prices from all of them and pit them against each other. So I'm going to call AT&T and get the DSL price. I'm going to call Comcast or whatever they're called now and get their price for their cable internet. And then I'm going to say, call back AT&T. Hey, Comcast is willing to give me this price. Can you match it? Or the other way around. Let's kind of get them to negotiate their own rate down based on who you're trying to get, what you're getting from other people. So negotiating any of those bills is a huge way to save. With TV, if you can't give up cable, if this panics you, this whole conversation is just more than you can handle. Don't get too scared. Sling is pretty cheap, guys. It starts, I think, at 25 bucks a month. You can add on more sports during football season, and you can take them off after football season. So we have a number of ESPNs right now, and as soon as football season's over, we won't anymore. Except, honestly, we should just stop because Florida State's having a really bad season, and I don't care to watch anymore. We could just save the $5 and buy it next year when Florida State has the potential to win a game again. You know, that's the joy of going with Sling and DirecTV Now and all of the online streamings, because there's no contract. So you pay by the month, and when you don't want it, you turn it off. When you do want it, you turn it back on. It's very, very simple, but you've got all your channels that you probably love. You have HGTV, you have Food Network, you know, all the big ones that most of us love. You have a lot of the sports channels, but you can kind of search around and find the ones that you're looking for. But those are easy things to renegotiate. So phone, cable, internet, cell phone. If you still have a house phone, that's something else that I would consider. I'm not going to say that everybody should drop it, but most people don't have a house phone anymore. I don't know that it's a requirement anymore either. Maybe it's time to just go with a cell phone and kind of be done with that one completely. Okay, so Katie's saying we've tried many things with budgeting. This month we're trying something that's working really well with us, for us. We figured out what the average spending is on things that don't change much. Let's see, Katie, the rest of your comment got cut off, so I'll get my husband to give me all of it. But, and then I'll answer. Sorry, can't see it. When it's really long, Facebook only gives me a piece. Cindy's chiming in on the Walmart one. Straight Talk is Walmart's system. They've been on it for over 2 years now and have been very impressed. A lot of people love Straight Talk, Cindy. It runs on Verizon towers for everything that I've heard, and cost-wise is almost a fraction of Verizon. So, oh, thanks, Heidi. Giving me the rest of the comment. If we run out of cash, there's no more eating out, buying craft supplies, etc. And we're under budget and it's almost the end of the month. So it sounds like, Katie, what you've done is really gone with an envelope system. That is what Dave Ramsey recommends for a lot of folks. So an envelope system basically is we decide what each of these categories is going to hold, and you put cash in the envelope for that category. When the cash is gone and the envelope is empty, you spend nothing else in that category unless you rob from another envelope. That's the only way you're going to make it work. If I want to eat out more, I have to rob that money from gas money or from pet food. You know, that would be a sad thing. Let's not starve the dog so that you can go on a date. But you get the idea. That's the concept of the envelope system, is that if it doesn't exist, I can't spend it. And that sounds like exactly what y'all are doing, which is great. There is an app that is doing that. So as we mentioned apps earlier, the Good Budget app that I recommended, or that I mentioned, is an envelope-based app. So you could try that out if you wanted to try an app as well. Let's see. Oh, Laura's saying that her mother-in-law works for a cable company. That's great. Yeah, if you got an in, let's go for it. Not all of us have that fun perk. The rest of us just have to pay for it. With envelope systems, as I mentioned too, they don't have to be cash, by the way, guys. A fun way to handle this might actually be to go to a gift card system. So I have a gift card for Starbucks, and when that gift card for Starbucks is empty at the end of the month, I don't spend any more money at Starbucks. So you can go with a number of ways to look at that. The gift card system is a little easier to handle versus a whole bunch of cash. I remember in college babysitting for a family, opening up their freezer to get food for their kid and finding envelopes filled with money, because that's where they kept their envelope system. And I had never heard of this as a 19-year-old in college. I just more thought they were really, really strange with a freezer full of money. But now I understand. That's the hard part with the cash-based system, is where do we keep these envelopes filled with cash? But it works. Going gift card-wise, one perk to that could be that we always see deals on gift cards. So you can get them at the grocery store and earn gas savings from Kroger or discounts from Publix and other stores. And then that still is my gas money. So I bought a $50 gas station gift card at Publix. I paid $40 for it using the Publix gas station gift card deal. But I have a $50 gas budget now with the gift card. So you can kind of look at the same concept, but maybe you've stretched it a little further going with the gift cards. Just an option. And when the gift card is empty, there's no more money to spend in that category. One thing on cutting expenses, I would recommend to look for the kind of the low-hanging fruit on what you're going to decide to cut. So don't look at your husband and say, we're going to sell the car right now. Let's go for smaller categories before we have to go for really, really huge ones. Obviously, if we can nix some eating out for a little while, maybe we try once a week of no eating out, twice a month. So we still eat out a little bit, but we don't eat out for one whole week every other week, meaning no coffee, no nothing for 1 week, and then for 1 week you do. You know, ease yourself into it, but let's go for low-hanging fruit. Jonathan asks, can we talk insurance? So in terms of insurance, Jonathan, you can still kind of renegotiate on some of those. What I would recommend with insurance is that once a year you do price around and we see what the rates are for the same coverage. I'm not saying that you're going to knock coverage down to super low levels. You don't really want to do that to yourself. But let's go ahead once a year and see what about State Farm and Allstate and Liberty Mutual and line those up and make sure we have the best rates. Let's also make sure that we have all of the line item deductions, as they call them, that we should have. There are some strange ones that you may not know about, but for homeowners, if you have fire extinguishers in your home, that can be a deduction depending on the company that you're with. So asking them, are there any deductions that I don't have that I could? Low-hanging deductions, basically, that we could easily have handled for our homeowner's policy or for our car policy that we're currently not doing. And you'll be surprised when you do ask that question, because they don't like to tell you, but if you do ask that question, they'll always come back with one or two. And then you can even do some searching online for other ones that they may not want to mention to you as well. But pricing them out against other competitors once a year is huge. Beth Ann's got another great tip too, and this is what we do. Many insurances offer discounts if you pay in full once a year instead of monthly. So budgeting correctly, yeah, you're going to save money going forward. Maybe I budget for the next 12 months and then I pay that all in one fell swoop, and the next year I'm set. I got to keep putting that money aside each month to be able to do it. But that is what we do. So when I mentioned earlier to not forget about your yearly expenses, those really are yearly for us. We're going to pay the home insurance, and some of you have that in escrow, and that's not a problem. But even in escrow, find out whether it's being paid monthly or yearly, because that could lower your escrow costs. If it is being paid monthly, let's see if we could change it to being yearly. The same for the car. Let's see. Jay saying, talking about gift cards, any advice about selling them? So Jay, there's a lot of places that actually you can sell gift cards. Gift Card Granny that Jonathan mentioned, Raise.com is another place to sell. Gift Card Mall. There's a lot of places that will take them. Sometimes you can just turn around and sell them on eBay yourself, but lots of different places. Raise.com is the one that we use the most when we are going to grab used gift cards. So if I'm going to get a deal at Kohl's, I actually start there first and buy a Kohl's gift card at a discount, and then turn around and head to Kohl's and use all the coupons that they're offering and get the Kohl's cash, but always starting with the discount gift card first. Okay, I think I've managed to keep up with everybody's questions, hoping there for a little bit, that I didn't miss anybody's. And Shanna's even mentioning, you know, the Plenty points using, so if I'm going into Buy Low or I'm going into Kroger, I'm buying those gift cards that are going to be my gift card envelope system. you're getting extra savings on gas just by doing that. So you're helping your gas budget even further by using gift cards as your envelope system, just to kind of throw that out there as a tip too. What was the name of the place that we bought gift cards? So Marty, it's raise.com. Like I want to raise basically, but raise.com sells gift cards and they have a guarantee on them. So you don't ever have to worry about them not having the value that they say they're going to have. They've been a really great website. We've gotten a lot of gift cards from them. I'm looking at my notes, making sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, here's another one. Somebody gave us a book when we got married from Crown Financial Ministries, and they had a really great tip that we took to heart, and I would recommend it for you guys too. So not only are we saving for rainy day funds, but a lot of us have wants. It's tricky to separate our wants and our needs sometimes, but if you have wants that are not requirements, they do not feed you, they do not clothe you, and they do not house you, they are not needs, they are wants. And you and your husband, or yourself if you're single, you need to set a budget in mind of at what point do I never allow a splurge on a want. And what I mean by that is at what point, is it $50, is it $75? At what point do we say, I want something, it costs $75, then it needs to go on a list. And Crown Financial Ministries said, put it on the back of your bedroom door. And if you want something, you write it on the piece of paper on the back of the bedroom door if it's above that threshold that you've set. And it needs to stay on the list for 30 days. So I can no longer have these impulse buys that cost a lot of money and then end up sitting there and you're not using them. And they really were a waste in the end. Needs to go on the list, and it needs to live on the list for 30 days. After it's lived on the list for 30 days, if you both agree with it, then let's go ahead and let's buy it if you both agree with it. What ends up happening in our world when we were first married, the 30-day requirement means that really that first item gets crossed off. And then after a week or so, you're like, no, I don't really need that anymore. I really want this. And something else gets written below it. But a new 30 days just started on that item. And you start to find that the things that I wanted, they really aren't that important 30 days later. And I now have other things that are getting added to the list. So I would highly recommend that for folks, especially if you're having issues with some splurge spending. It's a great way to just kind of remind yourself, it has to stay on the sheet of paper for 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, if we both agree, great. But if it doesn't, then it comes off the list and we add something else on there too. And I like that too. So Beth Ann says, I like to think about impulse buys in terms of the number of hours that I have to work. So is this $100 shirt really worth working 4 hours for? And you end up really quick deciding that I don't need that. I agree. I remember being fresh out of school as a nurse, and I got my first paycheck, and I thought I was going to be pretty loaded. And after taxes and everything, I couldn't even pay the rent on my apartment from that first paycheck. And that is all it took for me to stop and say, whoa, I do not want to have to pick up an overtime shift to have to pay for this new purse. I'm not buying it. So that's a great way to think about all of those too. Let's see. Toys R Us has coupons during Christmas, and the gift card, I got it righted a few weeks ago. Can I use a gift card with a coupon at Toys R Us? Heidi, you can. A gift card at Toys R Us is just your payment method. So I can always use a gift card and a coupon in any store together. Gift card is just how you're paying for the transaction in the end. And if you think about it, Heidi, even in that Toys R Us situation, they will have taken that coupon, it has come off, and then they're going to say, how are you going to pay for this? So that's really, in the end, the best way to look at it. Yes, it's good to see my husband being honest in the comments. How do you approach multiple size wardrobe budget-wise? So Jenny, that's a very good question. Something that our husbands don't have to deal with, but we need maternity clothes and we need normal size. And if you're like me, Jenny, you're going to need those clothes between maternity and normal size. So what we did, I don't know that I had anything maternity-wise that was brand new. all of my maternity clothes were hand-me-downs, or I bought them at consignment sales. Every single thing was used. Online consignment sites, there's a lot on ThredUp and on Schoola and the various sites that are out there. That's where I would point you to, and then holding on to those. So I had maternity outfits that they lived in a box and then pull them out again, and live in a box and pull them out again. I got 5 kids. So I would say all of my consignment maternity clothes, when I finally had the last baby, I don't know that many of them got handed down again. I don't know that there was a lot that was worth having a whole nother life after all of that. But it wasn't, budget-wise, a huge impact because we did get used for all of the maternity and then saved them all. They just lived in the attic or the garage, wherever you can stick them, in a Rubbermaid tote, just marked maternity and ready to go whenever they needed to be pulled out again. And I think they did get sent to Goodwill, but I don't know that anyone would have wanted them in the end. Random question, is it strange to have a piggy bank for wants things you want, an extra, save the extra money after bills? You know, you can go piggy bank if you want. For me, if I've got the piggy bank, it's too easy to rob a piggy bank. That I mentioned earlier, having the online money market accounts. There's another perk to online money market accounts, guys. It takes 3 days to transfer money in and to transfer money out. So I can't, in an online money market account, say, you know what, I really want to go to a movie right now and bust open the piggy bank or go to the ATM. They do give you an ATM card, but just hide it or cut it up. Don't ever plan to use it, because that 3-day window is perfect to slow down an impulse spend, so that you're kind of continuing to save it. But Laura, if you want to have a big jar that you're putting coins in, go for it and rob the coin jar from time to time. We have, I don't even know what it is, my husband could tell you, a big brown jug that reminds me of something you'd see in the Andy Griffith Show. And that is our coin jug. It probably weighs 20 pounds. But if I want to rob it, and it has a little tiny hole, so I'm going to have to sit there and shake it for a really long time. But we could rob it if we wanted to stop for a coffee that wasn't in the budget. Sometimes that's not a problem to have. Just make it where it's harder to rob than you might expect. What are my thoughts about selling apps for clothes? I'm looking to sell some of my clothes. So Jay, there are some great apps that are out there. If you've got some high-end clothing, then go with some of those sites like Poshmark. What's the one just for bags? If you hadn't asked, I could have thought about it. But what I would look at with any of those is what's the cut. So if I go with this site, how much are they taking? How much am I keeping? Some of the sites like ThredUp and Schoola, they're just going to send you a bag and you're going to fill it and they're going to give you what they decide it's worth. And that's usually not really what it's worth. So keep that in mind before you go with some of those companies, because you're not dealing individually, you're really dealing with this bulk amount that they're going to give you. You can also check with some local places like Plato's Closet and consignment stores locally to see what they would give you too. So Beth Ann says you could always save your $5 bills throughout the year and decide that amount at the end of the year, or for whatever is for your wants too. Ergen asks a Target question. Has Target become extremely unfriendly to couponers, or is it only in New York City? I tried using 2 legitimately printed Mambo Sprouts coupons for Perfect Bar, and their computers rejected them. And it stopped at front end, but I'm going to guess they just didn't take them at all. It can end up being store-based. The fact that the computers didn't take them would tend to be that nationally they wouldn't take them. It could have been a barcode issue. They weren't printed when they were originally designed. The barcode wasn't right. It didn't match the product. You know, whatever the case might be. Target is not known for being super coupon friendly already, or it's just a tricky one all the way around. I might hold on to them and try them in another store and see if they did work in another store, to kind of factor that in. Was it the coupon being coded wrong, or was it the store? That's going to tell you in a heartbeat, just to try it at a Whole Foods or something like that, also in the city. But they are not super, super coupon friendly. Let's see. Oh, and Vicky's saying too, she sells all her clothes on eBay and does very well. So usually selling yourself, just like with a car, you always get a better deal. So versus going with the ThredUp and putting it all in a bag or going to the Plato's Closet. If you're willing to spend the time, you will definitely do pretty well. Let's see. Sorry guys, trying to catch up. I use an empty fabric softener or laundry detergent plastic container as a coin jug. It's light and holds a lot, and it's hard to get the coins out. Perfect. I like that's the stealth too. Maybe you're the only one that knows which one actually has detergent and which one actually has coins. Could be a great way to save all of those. For us, that hard to get the coins out is the perfect time. I mean, I really don't want to sit there shaking the jar up and down, but if I needed the coins, I could do it. I could put the effort into getting them if I had to. Okay, well, we're over on time, and we hit a lot of stuff tonight. I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I'll pin the Dave Ramsey as soon as we're done so that it's saved up at the top. It really is a great way to get started with no cost because it's just printing this sheet out 3 times, and that way you can kind of get your own numbers under control. But again, to recap the apps that I recommended were Mint.com, which is completely free. Mint's big brother would be Quicken, and is a great app, especially if you are a small business. You can kind of go to the next level up with QuickBooks. YNAB, which is You Need a Budget, but YNAB is probably the #1 rated app, but it does have a small cost. Dave Ramsey's is called Every Dollar. It's more expensive. It has a lot of followers, but it also has a lot of folks that just love Dave Ramsey. So I don't know if it's fully worth the value. And Good Budget is the other one that I recommended earlier. So just to recap all of those. Before I leave, I'm going to take next week off. We haven't had a break on a Q&A in a really long time. So I thought, hey, it's really, you know, the day before all the craziness in October that a lot of people have other things to do next week with all of that too. So no Q&A next Monday night. And then we'll be back the very first Monday in November and won't have a break until Christmas because Christmas falls on a Monday. And while I love you guys, I don't think my kids would like that very much. So we'll just carry on through all of November and December with no breaks, but no Q&A next Monday night. So I hope you guys have a good 2-week gap. And if you've ever got questions, you can send me an email, jenny@southernsavers.com, or a Facebook message, and I will gladly answer them as fast as I can. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you later.